Lord. He is Lord.
Hallelujah.
He has risen from the dead, and He is Lord. Every knee shall bow, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord.
I will bless the Lord at all times, and His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My name is Mother Jewel. Some of you may have seen me before in other programs, and some of you may be just seeing me for the first time. But we are with Whom Say Ye That I Am presents, and we will be presenting today a very beautiful twosome, a mother and daughter. The mother is 100 years old. She just became 100 years old recently, and her dear precious daughter, who is with her all the time. They're like, kind of like my daughter and I. She's on the camera right now. We're together all the time, and she and her daughter are together all the time. But they have a husband in there. Her husband is there, the daughter's husband. And I would like them to introduce themselves to you. Joint Heirs is fairly new. We've done a little before, but we're just still kind of growing, and we're so pleased to have them to participate in talking about Mama Marie, who is 100 years old. And I want to just turn the camera to Mama and to Sister Ann, and she can tell you all about herself and her mom, and they have a whole lot of information that
So I'm Ann Lillard, and this is my mother, Marie Newcomer. And we have a story to tell. Just think, she was born 100 years to this year, so just think of all the changes that she's seen in her life. From a Model T Ford to the speed of light, and electricity, and all this modern stuff.
Yes.
So we're going to start out with some information about Mama Marie here. And when you were born, and the day that you were born, the hour, and the state and the city.
Wow. But I should first give you an idea where I came from. Where the first thing is that where I always remember that out of the Reformation, when there was all these problems going on about what needs to happen when a person is born again, and out of that came the Mennonite Church, which I belonged to since I was. My people come out of the lowlands of Germany, and they finally ended in the Ukraine, where they leased land for 100 years. And that is where that line has come down from over here, way back from the lowlands of Germany, all the way down. We're now in the Ukraine, and now they were being blessed because they had asked that they should have their liberty, religious liberty, their own schools, and then whatever happened, they didn't like. They were being too blessed, and so what happened is they decided to leave the Ukraine. So in 1875, a lot of, or I don't know how many I have counted them, but there are a great many of the Mennonite, the people that are belong to the Mennonite Church. It's just like belonging to the Lutherans or going to the Catholics. The Mennonites got their name from Menno Simons. He was a priest that found what he needed to know to be born again. He evangelized these, and here they're now. They're being persecuted for that, and they are trapped. They're going to go to America, and so the first place they had to go. My grandmother came with her 5 sons in that group of people. Just a little bit, I'll bring you into Canada where my grandfather and my grandmother came from the Ukraine, and they homesteaded in Minnesota. And this is where my father was born, and I was born at Butterfield, Minnesota. And now we are here. And the big thing in a group is they're only the ones concerned. Why are we here? We are here to serve the Lord.
Absolutely.
All this has happened
Yes.
is because the traveling, read the Old Testament, we did the same thing, just like the children of Israel. We're not here, and we're here to live for Jesus and to
Amen.
evangelize. And here is where my grandfather and grandmother, they had 3 kids when they came. 2 of them died, and so Mom and Grandma had one little girl named Kathy. And when she came to the United States in Minnesota, her first baby was another girl.
Oh my.
She lost 2, she had another little girl. And then she had, when she had the children, she had a boy, but then she had my dad.
Your dad.
That's where I came from.
That's how
my
he
father
came along. Okay.
Yeah, see, they're just from when they homesteaded in Minnesota. When he was born, my dad was that second son that she had, and he was born in 1886. We were now Grandpa built a Grandma they homesteaded in Butterfield, Minnesota, and when they had Abram, and the family name is Harder. They had Abram Harder, and he had come to a place where he was looking for a wife. Now that's the most interesting story about my father before I was born. He was living over here, and he wanted to, a man is supposed to help me.
Yes, help me.
Well, he found Mama. And Mama's story is just as interesting. But I was born then in Mountain Lake, Butterfield, Minnesota, on the farm where my dad was born.
What's your birth date?
September 7, 1915.
Wow.
Are you sure you're really that old?
That's a nice year. My mother was born in
September
1916.
7, 1915, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I did hear myself cry. But so, anyway, the reason I'm talking about where they were, when people live in a community, the land around them gets too much, so we're going to start another community. And now my dad had married, and he had my sister Kate, and now a lot of young people say, where are we going to find land? Somebody's got to find some land. So my dad and my mom homesteaded in South Dakota, close to an Indian reservation. But and this is where my brother Pete was born. And the interesting thing is, Pete was such a happy baby. The Indian people would like to trade him for a pony.
Mother, tell me, how many siblings did you have in your family?
How many?
Siblings did you have?
Well, I'll come to that right away, because Mama had Catherine, then they homesteaded, they had Peter, and things got so bad there, they packed up everything in a wagon, and they traveled from Lemon, South Dakota, back to Butterfield, Minnesota, in this little wagon with everything they had left. So now we're back at Grandpa's farm.
Grandpa's farm. Now, did
That's
he have
at
a a field of crops that he grew on the farm?
They lived on the farm. The Mennonites through the years, they were farmers.
What kind of crops did he have?
Well, mostly, what does Minnesota have? Mostly wheat crops, that which they raised cattle. They did the whole farming thing to keep alive, and they were good farmers because when Mom and Dad came back now to Butterfield from their first homestead, they were able to move into Grandpa's farm.
I want to talk about how many you had. 12. There were 12 of you.
That's where I am.
12.
They had Kitty before they left to the first homestead. They had Pete on South Dakota, and now we're back in Butterfield, and Mama had Nettie, and her name was Aganitha, but we didn't write like Aganitha. Nettie grew up Nettie. Now here comes another little girl. That's Marie. And I am in German. I'm Maria
And that's you?
Anna.
That's her?
She was the first
I'm
one.
Maria Anna, German. But of course now we say Maria. But so here I am, and Mama has settled down. Things were going pretty good. Now from Dad's side, they wanted to still homestead. So they got together, about 8 couples. Now I was 9 months old, and they just started to homestead again. Now we homesteaded in North Dakota.
Settle down into your last homesteading where you
Well,
stayed
this is
there.
where we did now. When this group of people, they homesteaded in North Dakota, and we eventually built our own little church. This homestead land it's like this. There were 8 families, and they could live all right. The land was open. And some of it was just old grassland, like what the buffaloes roamed in. And we did something
The
like...
home where the buffaloes roam?
Yes.
Right,
Oh, my.
because it had not been plowed. We could go out there, and they had what we called something in the ground. You could pick, there's some kind of potatoes you could dig in the ground. They were edible. But anyway, here we are in North Dakota. We have settled down with 8 families. The county built us a school.
I was just going to ask you about the school. How did the school come about?
The school.
How did the school come about?
Well, apparently, remember, I'm only 9 months old, so a lot of that I'm the girl that came as a baby with my family, but out of this area where I grew up is where they said the first year they had school, and some of the people.
So by the time you got school age, there were some schools already built for the children before you?
They built a school after we came.
But for you, was there any schooling for you?
Well, of course.
Well,
they built a school when all these 8 families came in, and on this land here, they built a school for them. So there was a school.
So by the time you got school age, you were entering into that same school?
There was school, so my oldest sister went, Pete went, Nettie went. Now Marie is going to go to school.
Oh, now it's her turn, your turn.
Now it's Marie's turn to go to school.
How old were you when you started?
I was 7.
Oh, okay.
Because everybody starts at 6.
Oh,
but
6.
Because of there are not enough kids to start, so I started at 7.
And then they had enough for you to start at 7 with the other kids.
Out of this group, just imagine this little church, all the same people. You went to school, all the same kids except 2. One was, that didn't belong turkey.
So what subjects did you learn in school?
What subjects did you learn in school?
Well, all the reading, writing, math, everybody say, and my brother-in-law used to say, by the time we finished 8th grade, it was like we'd had 2 years of high school because we did have all these extra things, but we didn't have high school. We're like the Amish. There's a lot that came out. But of course, you finished high school, you finished grade school, and you helped farm.
Okay, so you would go to school part of the time and farm part of the time.
Did you get an allowance for working?
Are you kidding?
Well,
when you're in the farm, Dad farmed 160 acres is what each one had, and he farmed his and his sisters. And out of that, you made your living.
okay.
But my dad had something. My dad was a gifted man because he was a butcher, he was a carpenter, he could do whatever it is he could do. So he was, when it came to building, my dad had the training he could do. But the whole thing is that when you were on the farm, you were part of the farming.
Okay.
We did and they laughed at me and said, when some of this new ground was plowed, you remember the buffaloes had run across it, and when you started plowing with it, the rocks came out. We would run, he would take the wagon and go through the field, and we kids would pick up the rocks.
Was that for fun?
So
Just
the
to play
rocks
with
would be.
them?
No.
Get 'em out of the way.
This is
Okay.
Homestead. Remember,
Oh.
1915. By the time
By the time, this would be like 1920, 25,
Yeah,
20,
okay.
1925.
Because my mom was born in that same time as your mom. Yeah.
So let's talk about your baptism.
Oh yes.
Okay, well, that was what happened.
When did you meet Jesus? How old were you?
How old were you when you got saved?
Well, don't you know the Mennonites used when the Reformation big thing was because they were baptizing babies when you were an infant, and during the Reformation it was that you should be baptized on your confession of faith, not sprinkled as infant.
As an infant.
So we had you by the time you were 12, 13, 14, that age where you could understand what it meant to have Jesus in your heart, to be born again. Well, I had an experience long before that. But I figured out I must have been around 4, because I was sitting on my father's lap, and the 3 older ones were standing beside me, and there was a baby. Otherwise, a baby would be on the lap. He was teaching us, God is still living, last me your lace, and God is still living, early told me. God is love, and He loves us still, and He points us to Jesus who saved us. And I felt it in my heart.
Oh,
I
how
felt
wonderful.
it, and I always remember, from that time on, I was a Jesus girl.
So as you grew up out there in your property, did the school start having lots of other families' kids at the school, and you start having school activities?
Hey, anybody I'm reading the Amish books right now, and when you belong to an Amish community, you have, like the children of Israel, each one has their own little place. And that's what we were. We were we were a community to ourselves.
You did not worship together on a special day, all of you?
But what I'm saying that is, you did go out there. You were supposed to bring people, bring them to Jesus and bring them in. But you were not supposed to go out there. You were supposed to be a community that showed people how to live with Jesus.
Okay, so each family had their own home. You all knew one another, but you operated independently of one another, as well as you knew each other.
Yes,
but
it's just like now, if you belong to a church, that's a community. But we're so spread out now that you don't have
like we have churches all over
Yes.
Portland. Say we're all in Portland,
But
Oregon.
see,
So everybody in all the churches, they don't all just come and get together just because the church is on this corner and church is down that street. We know about them. We might see them. Hi, how are you? You know, and we go our way and we
but
worship.
this is
like
what I
that?
call the
Right.
church
Oh.
family. We were a church family, and we lived up there in North Dakota, Montreal County. We homesteaded North Dakota. We lived there for 20 years. This little community, we didn't have any new converts in our families. We, each one when they reached that age, went through had commute. No, we studied catechism and made our confession of faith.
That's
and
kind
then
of like
we
the
were
Catholic
baptized.
catechism.
Well, no, it's more like a training before you're baptized, so you know you're being born again.
Okay, I see.
But so the kids I sang in choir with in church, I was out of school. And so you didn't go out there and find a boyfriend. You stayed within your community.
Talking about boyfriends.
Yes. How
Talking
does that
about
work?
boyfriends, how did you meet Daddy?
Oh, that
Good
was
question.
exciting.
Well, talk about meeting Daddy.
Yes.
Well, first of all, let's get off the farm. Let's leave North Dakota.
Let's leave the farm and
let's
go
leave
to
North
Daddy
Dakota.
and Mama.
Yeah, let's go to Warroad, Minnesota.
Okay, but all right. To get to Warroad, you have to remember how we left North Dakota. North Dakota had, maybe 5 years things were going pretty good, but then we started having grasshoppers. We had Asian fly. We had drought. We had so much illnesses that it ended up into that drought area. By 1930, by 19, maybe 28, families started moving away because there was so much pestilence and so such a drought.
Was it destroying the crops?
Our big crops were